Moving on to November, things get hot right off the jump. So, on November 6th, a special day, three things release unless things change as of this after this recording. Two amiibo for the upcoming Metroid Prime game, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, come out. Samus with the Various suit, the standard orange classic Chozo suit, that comes out at $30. And the Samus and Viola amiibo. I got that wrong during the reaction. I was calling it Voila. I think I'm just gonna keep calling it that, but it's officially Viola, which is the name of, I think, her suit, the new red suit shown in the trailer, as well as the bike, which is interesting. I don't know why they share the same name, but that amiibo is a must-have. Like, even at this very high price for an amiibo, $40, is hype. It looks dope. I mean, the bike, I'll save all that for the Metroid Prime segment, but yeah, that one is like a must have. Um but more notable, I guess. Maybe, I don't know if it is or not. We'll see once reviews come out. But releasing that same day as well, so while you're at the store, grab up all three of these things. Grab your Samus Various Suit amiibo, your Samus and Viola amiibo, and also your copy of Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. This one was tough for me because I felt like it was really poetic for the Switch 1 generation to end with the big game that ended it, being Tears of the Kingdom, a sequel to the game that ushered in the Switch 1 generation, Breath of the Wild. I found that to just be beautiful. And obviously it wasn't the last game. Like, we got Mario Wonder after, and Echoes of Wisdom, and finally a port of Xenoblade Chronicles X. Like, those are the noteworthy titles. And I guess now Prime 4, but it's releasing after the Switch 2's launch, so it's in a weird little nebulous area there. But yeah, like that really is the last big game for Switch 1. No offense to those titles I just mentioned, especially Prime 4. Like, that's probably going to be my game of the year. But yeah, there was something, it did feel very climactic and epic and fitting as a send-off for one of the greatest consoles ever made. And not only that, but as the potentially last game in the era of the wild. And now that I'm thinking about it, I'm maybe putting a little bit too much pressure on Age of Imprisonment to now be the perfect send-off for the era of the wild, because maybe it's not. We have learned literally nothing about Zelda the 3. I was going to say Zelda 3, Breath of the Wild 3. We don't know. We don't know anything. Again, it could be Breath of the Wild 3, or it could be Ocarina of Time remake. We don't know. There's literally not an inkling, not even any leak. The only Zelda thing we know and have to look forward to after this is the movie, which I honestly don't care much for. I'm hoping, I'm ready to be surprised and impressed. I'm not holding my breath though, because it would be the first sort of mature content released by Nintendo. Mature adjacent. I don't think it's going to be rated R by any stretch, but at the same time, I really, this isn't about that, but I really do have high ambitions for it, as well as no ambitions. Like, I totally expect it to either be a wet fart, like just a complete failure, an embarrassing experiment, or the start of potentially an amazing epic trilogy. But who knows? We don't know. Specifically about Era of the Wild, we really don't know. And honestly, just getting a direct sequel to a 3D Zelda game is also uncharted waters. We got that with Majora's Mask. I'm pretty sure it's confirmed that's young Link from Ocarina, but even then, I don't know for sure, and I'm not too versed in the timeline to really confirm that. I could just look it up right now, but That's the closest example, along with A Link Between Worlds, which is really cool. I think that's, if they had done Tears of the Kingdom that way, where we revisited this Hyrule the way we did in that game, but years after Breath of the Wild, like one or two 3D Zelda games after, I think that would have landed a lot better than Tears of the Kingdom did. Because all everyone said with Tears of the Kingdom was, it's DLC. It's DLC. We were just here in Breath of the Wild. Now we're here again, but we have Zonai devices and all this. And it's like, for a lot of people, that made it seem like it wasn't the sequel that they either wanted or expected, because it takes place in the same place the previous game did. But I think if they had done the Link Between Worlds thing, where it was like a good amount of time between Breath of the Wild and Tears, then the feelings would have been different. It would have been nostalgia. It would be like, oh my gosh, we're back. We're back in Era of the Wild Hyrule. It's been so long. And it would look different too, because graphics and horsepower and all that stuff. But that's not what happened. And honestly, I had my feelings. This is not going to be a review of Tears of the Kingdom. I had conflicting feelings about Tears of the Kingdom as well. But the more and more time I spent with it, and frankly, the more and more time I spent away from the main campaign, the more I fell in love with it. And now it's my second favorite game of all time. So yeah, that was an odyssey playing Tears of the Kingdom. I'm still playing it. So I was happy with it being the last experience in Era of the Wild Hyrule. Then they announced Age of Imprisonment. And I'm conflicted because, again, I thought Tears of the Kingdom was a good send-off, but also I don't know how this could be a better send-off to the Era of the Wild than Tears of the Kingdom was. And it could. It definitely could. But given the kind of game that it is, which is not an indictment or anything, I loved Age of Calamity. I loved it for the reasons other people hated it. I genuinely love it. Like, I had never played a Warriors game before that. I really liked the gameplay, and I really loved the story and how they handled the characters and setting of Breath of the Wild and whatnot. I think they did a phenomenal job. So I'm honestly not worried about how they're going to handle this second game from the Era of the Wild, because I trust this team after seeing what they did. But they are doing something different this time, which is actually giving us a canonical representation of events from the very distant past of Wild Era Hyrule, which is not something they contended with in Age of Calamity. Not a big spoiler. I think everybody knows at this point that game kind of takes place in a different timeline. The events of that Calamity era play out differently than they did in Breath of the Wild. And I think it's for the better. It was so much fun to experience. But here we're getting basically more canonical lore. And it kind of leans into sort of some of my grievances with Tears of the Kingdom, which was with how they handled some of the storytelling and stuff like that, and elements of ancient Hyrule in Tears of the Kingdom, and how little they explain. So the thing I'm worried about is they have a lot of gaps to fill in terms of Hyrule's history and what was going on in that ancient past, and in between even the Era of the Wild and the Era of Myth, which is when all the other games take place. And even then, the timeline's kind of, the Era of the Wild exists on its own little area far away from all the other games because of how far ahead it is. So, like, the thing I'm worried about is that it's not going to be daring enough and really lean into the lore as much as I would like it to. And I don't know. We don't know. They've really bitten off a lot here, and I don't know if they're going to be able to chew it all and process it properly. Like, really, there's a lot. Like, the thing is too that makes this difficult is that we haven't gotten Masterworks 2 localized yet here in English. And the reason that's a problem is because Masterworks 1 is a thing, and that was made for Breath of the Wild. And what that did was it fleshed out a lot of the finer details about what happened 100 years before the events of Breath of the Wild in that book, and it did a good job. It doubled as an art book, but also as a pretty substantial lore dump, and it did a good job of that too. Although, given the proximity of the events of Breath of the Wild and the Age of Calamity, there's only 100 years in between. I mean, that's a long time, but like you get a lot of environmental storytelling and a lot of people that were alive even during the events of the Calamity filling in the gaps and telling you about what happened. It's different in Tears of the Kingdom, where the amount of time between the ancient past of that game and the present in this game is very wide. We're talking about the refounding of New Hyrule, which we now know is New Hyrule because it's been confirmed that this is not Ocarina's Ganondorf. Like, this is a new Ganondorf, and basically all this Tears of the Kingdom, Rauru, that version of ancient Hyrule takes place after everything else, literally. And this could be the chance for them to fill in a lot of gaps. They don't have to be in depth either, but they could, like, one of the prevailing theories, and my first video on this channel, I think, is concerning that gap and how there is a possible connection between the era of the Wild and the era of Myth, and it all comes down to the Wind Waker and the flooding of the world or whatever, and Hyrule, and how this refounding of Hyrule is likely, potentially, if the theories of much more knowledgeable Zelda fans are right, takes place after Wind Waker and is part of that timeline. And the area, I'm going to spoil stuff from Tears of the Kingdom from here on out. If the depths from Hyrule is truly a subterranean, they confirmed it. I think even in some of the descriptions for like the fireflies or whatever, they're subterranean in nature. That's a subterranean era. Then that's the Hyrule that was flooded. That's the world that was flooded. And the land we are on right now, where the whole game takes place and stuff, and Breath of the Wild took place, that's all land that was formed from islands created by the Koroks in Wind Waker. They planted seeds from the surface of the ocean that created land masses and trees with roots that reach down all the way to the bottom of that great sea from Wind Waker, using that as their foundation where they set root to create these new land masses and the continent we know as Hyrule today. If that got confirmed in this game, that would be great. Is that going to happen? I don't know. Are they going to confirm if that's confirmed, then that confirms the Master Sword too. Because this apparently, we know it actually, if this is part of the timelines related to any of the previous games from the era of Myth, then the Fi in the sword that we know is at least a Fi, because it talks and stuff, like it glows and stuff, like in Breath of the Wild and whatnot, and in Tears. In the beginning of the game, it happens in Tears. It glows and stuff when they're exploring the depths of the castle. That would confirm that this is the Master Sword from the era of Myth. It's not like Ganondorf, where it's a new Ganondorf. It's not a new Master Sword. This is the Master Sword from Skyward Sword, which is the beginning of the timeline and has been passed down and, of course, continued through millennium. This sword is old as hell. And Fi has basically journeyed alongside every Link, including now the latest Link, the Tears of the Kingdom one. That would be confirmed too if they did that. There's so much that they could, there's such a massive gulf that could be filled with this game if they choose to tackle that lore and that amount of lore and that kind of lore and indulge in all that. Because we don't even really know the origin of the Zonai. We just know they came from the sky. Like, they're not the first sky people in Zelda. So, like, there's that. There's the question of the ancient hero. There's the question of, like, the Deku Tree and, like, the pedestal. And because this is a new Hyrule, so we can see in this game, like, maybe we go and see Korok Forest. And, like, I don't even know, like, the pedestal and stuff. I gotta revisit the the first masterworks, the creating a champion, I think it mentions the pedestal being there time in memoriam, but technically none of this was there for a long time. It was just an ocean, because Wind Waker showed us that the world was flooded until the Koroks changed that. So we could see the origin of this new Hyrule, this new era, and how it all began and how it connects to the era of myth. I don't know if that's gonna happen though. And now they've even muddied the waters further with this fucking construct that's like flying around like a jet plane and shaped like Link and stuff, and has like maybe the spirit of Fi in it, which is wild because we know in Tears of the Kingdom, Zelda gets the sword after the war of the imprisoning war. The imprisoning war. This is the imprisoning war. After the imprisoning war ended. So if that is Fi, which many people assume it is because her theme song is playing during that segment of the trailer when they show the construct, the new construct that like turns again into like a fucking jet plane and stuff like that in this newest trailer, and has like some kind of, it looks like a human, you know, it's humanoid, looks kind of like Link. If that's got Fi in it, it's not the Fi from the sword Link sends back in time in Tears. This would be the Fi from the original Master Sword, which raises the question of, if they had the original Master Sword, why didn't we see it in any of the memories in Tears of the Kingdom? Why didn't they use it in the fight against Ganon? It would have killed him. It would have won. It killed him in Tears of the Kingdom. I mean, you could also beat him with Royal Claymores fused with bones, Molduga jaws, but you know, like they both have a lot of work. They already had a lot of work to do if they really were going to do a canonical exploration of the ancient founding of New Hyrule, but then they gummed it up and made it even like a more gargantuan task and a more complicated one with these new elements we've seen in the latest trailers. It's like, I gameplay wise, it's going to be great. Like, as a Warriors fan, if you're a Warriors fan, give it a crack. Like the first one, even you can play it now on Switch 2 and it's at 60 frames most of the time apparently, which it wasn't on Switch 1. And it's a fun action game. I liked it a lot. I was like, hey, you know what? I'm digging this. This is great. So I was having a great time all around on it with every element of the experience. But when it comes to the Zelda and lore stuff, that's the stuff I'm worried about, because I just watched GameSpot's like preview that they did. Apparently they're doing previews now behind closed doors for certain outlets. Game runs smooth. It looks really nice, and it's the way they're using the Zonai devices looks great. And I mean, again, they killed it with like it was a full-blown Zelda game otherwise. Like, all the voice actors are there in Age of Calamity. The cutscenes were top notch. There was more of them than there were in Breath of the Wild. It was phenomenal. It's going to be a phenomenal experience in terms of just polish and overall feature completeness. It's just a question of, when it comes to the thing that matters most to a lot of Zelda fans, which is the lore and story and stuff like that. What are we going to learn? What are we going to see? Are we going to like what we learn? You know, a lot of people weren't happy that this whole era takes place after the fact. Like, a lot of people were trying, like, just wrapping themselves into pretzels, trying to figure out how Raru's kingdom works in the timeline with Ocarina and when does it take place and stuff, because it's Ganon. And then they found out that Ganon, this is a new Ganon, and they didn't like that. A lot of people didn't like that. They were like, what do you mean there's a new Ganon? There's only ever been one Ganondorf. Apparently every appearance of Ganondorf previously was always the same one. So, you know, people didn't like that bit of lore that we learned. And then, of course, there was just the other element of it where it's like, we didn't really learn much about Ganondorf at all through the memories and stuff. So there was a lack of character development on that part of him. The sages, which I don't really care. The sages, they're failures in my eyes. Like, the champions, they got blindsided, all right? They went to their divine beasts, they got caught blindsided, and died in the process because, you know, Ganon cheated, all right? He possessed the divine beast and trapped them in there. They couldn't leave. They had to fight until either they won or they lost. But with the sages, they're all like, as far as I can tell, like none of that happened. They're out there just fighting like it's a normal war, and they're just getting their cheeks clapped, and it's all of them versus Ganon at one point in the last memory, and they're still losing. I'm like, bro, Link's over here like half naked, throwing apples at the guy doing work, and you guys can't do anything all together. You even had fucking Zelda there helping you. Like, come on, what's up with these guys? Like, like if if all the original champions were with Link and they were all going up against like the Blights as well as like the Calamity Ganon as he presented himself 100 years ago, they would have won. Like they would have fucking clapped his ass. But these sages all together still couldn't do it. Like not being trapped and blindsided either. Like come on. Like what's up with you guys? Like I'm ready for them to be cool characters and people, but they're also like hard, like ripping off like the original champions a lot too. So hopefully they do get distinct character to them and do turn out to be cool people. But otherwise, as soldiers, I kind of like I don't revere them or really care much. I honestly wouldn't have minded if they were still faceless, voiceless, just characters in this game because I really don't need them to be anything. I got the champions. They're my guys. All right. That's my crew right there. They're the ones I love. Yeah, these guys, they failed and set the future of Hyrule down the path it did because of their actions and inactions and all that stuff. But yeah, basically my biggest worry with this game is the lore. I wonder what they're going to do. What are we going to see in the depths? Like there are so many questions related to ancient Hyrule and stuff like that. So I'm excited for them to all be answered and to get some interesting answers in the process and for finally this era to be connected to the era of myth in a concrete fashion. But also ready to be disappointed on that front. At the very least, though, I'm sure it's going to be a damn fine Hyrule Warriors game. It's going to be tons of fun. And already some of the characters they showed, that new Korok is the best. Like that little Korok with the hat was so good. But yeah, that's Age of Imprisonment.